Love to welcome everyone this evening to ACCBE's Building Trustee Excellence. And our subject tonight is starting strong. And this is for board presidents, new and old, also vice presidents and clerks, so that you really have a good feeling of what's expected. So with that, we'll get started. Debbie?
Awesome. So what we'd like everyone to do is in the chat, if you would please write your name and the county. And we're also interested in a word that you would use to describe how you're feeling about your role as president. So we have a word cloud here if you're looking for some inspiration. Um, feel Please feel free to use a word of your own choosing. Obviously, we want an accurate. Marcy's excited. Very cool to see that. Any We'll give everyone a minute and you can continue to do this as we go through the presentation. David, you're just straight up a facilitator like that. All right. So if you continue to do that, and then I'll probably announce this one or two other times as we go if we have some folks joining later. So just to briefly go over, we like to do a quick overview with each of our presentations. ACCBE is a new organization. We've recently finished our first year. We are county boards of education for county boards, and our mission is to empower board members, trustees to be advocates for all students. And our vision is the leading voice for California County Boards of Education is to improve outcomes for students, families, and communities. So we have four pillars that our work is built around. And the third one, engage, elevate, and empower, is a lot of what our education is about. We're all about building capacity for our leadership, helping them to be better board members, and also foster collaboration and peer support within this group. So we do a lot of these online trainings, and we do have some in-person events that are coming up at the end of or in February, April and May, and we'll talk about those towards the end of the presentation. So with this, I will hand this back to Bev and Juliana.
And I realized I did not introduce myself. I apologize. I'm Beverly Gerard, and I am on the San Mateo County Board of Education. And I have been the president of my board several times. I'm currently the vice president. And I want to talk just very briefly about the purpose of tonight's webinar. And one of the things we want to do is network with other new county presidents from around California and to explore what presidents do and also trustee roles and responsibilities during a board meeting. Because I want you all to remember that this meeting is your meeting. It is the board's meeting, not the public's meeting or the county office's meeting. And we're also going to talk briefly about the trustee handbook, which I call the Bible for county board members. And we want to also receive just-in-time coaching. So we're actually going to be encouraging you to ask immediate questions, talk about challenges or concerns you have about being a new or returning board president.
Hi, I'm Juliana Ferriani, past board member on the Tuolumne County Board of Education. And we want to do a little networking activity with you right now. And this is, you don't have to put this in the chat. You can if you would like to, but more of a discussion between all of us to answer these questions. How long have you been a trustee? Why you ran for president and what you hope to achieve? And what passion and or skills do you bring to the position? And so I would just like to open it up to anybody who would like to answer all three or one of those questions. Is there anybody who'd like to start?
I can go. Sorry if my audio is a little wonky. I'm on vacation and I have hotel Wi-Fi. But my name is Hugo Torres, and I have the pleasure of serving alongside Beverly Gerard on the San Mateo County Board of Education. Um, I'm going on year 3. I was first appointed, mainly wanting to make sure there was more representation for our marginalized communities, our LGBTQ plus students and students of color. Um, and what I'm hoping to achieve this year, because it changes every year, this year is really solidifying a unified front as a board since we have new board members. And then the passions and skills that I bring, I formerly taught uh, all grades K through 8, and then I was a principal for a TK through 8 dual immersion school.
Great, thank you, Hugo. Anybody else like to,
Sure,
Nancy?
I could go. I have been a trustee for 18 years. I've never run for president. They just always nominate me and I get elected. And my passion is to do what's right. And I guess my biggest passion is to watch the constituents' money, the taxpayers' money, and how we spend it.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I think Nancy, you wanted to say something?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So I have been on our Board of Education for a year, and in January I was appointed as president. What I hope to achieve is that our board doesn't quite have a governance handbook yet, so I'm really passionate about developing that as a group. We have a retreat scheduled for March, and I hope that we can start to work on that. We do have a new board member with us that was appointed in the fall, and we just had a resignation, so we will have someone come and join us probably in the next month. So we will be a new board, and so what I hope to do is, number one, bring us together as a group, develop those relationships and that trust, and that we move forward with doing great things. And I have to say hello to Hugo. I remember meeting you in Sacramento, and I have watched your board meetings. You run a very efficient board meeting, and I appreciate everything you all do. Thank you so much.
Great, great. Anybody else like to share?
I think Michael has his hand up.
Okay, Michael?
Yes, I've only been on the county board for 3 years. I am not the president. I am the clerk or vice president. Prior to being on county board, I've been on, as a lot of you know, been on a unified school district board for, I've been on boards for almost 20 years. So I had a number of times being president, and I've turned down it most of the time because I was asked this year, but the president does a great job of running the meeting. So we've left her there as president for her 3rd year because she does a good job of running the meeting with it. I bring a lot of knowledge and my passion for education. I'm a retired special education teacher. So education is my life. So I do a lot of it also on the legislative side. And it's through, working with the school boards that we're able to do best for our kids. And so that's why I'm there, is to do what we can to make sure that our kids are educated.
Great, great answers. Can we have one more?
I can speak. It's Jessica Spicer. I'm with the Santa Clara County Board of Education. I've been only a year on the Santa Clara County Board of Education, but had been a local district trustee for 8 years prior, and was board president of the local district twice. So I know how to run a meeting. I got the honor, I guess, of running our meeting last night because I was acting president because our president had a baby a week and a half ago. So it was a little trial by fire, but I survived it last night. I ran for or leadership because I wanted to help our county is a little bit in upheaval right now, and I really wanted to help us move forward. I try to be a very, I don't know, compassionate leader who's empathetic and hears what everybody has to say and tries to find points of commonality when we don't agree. So um, I really, try to do that. And so, yeah, that's my passion and why I ran. So thank you.
Great answers. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce a video. It's an informational video about what county offices and county boards do from the California School Superintendent's website.
If there's sound, I don't hear it.
Thank you for letting me know. Let me work with a couple settings here. Well, hold on. There should be a setting here to share sound, and I am not finding it. Let me try here. Was anybody able to hear the sound?
No, I was.
No.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Hold on. Well, hold on here. I am going to have to. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Okay, share. Aha, I have found it. Sorry about that. All right, try again. Somebody yell if you still can't hear it, please.
What exactly does a county office of education do? And how does its role differ from your local school district? Let's take a look. What exactly does a county office of education do? And how does its role differ from your local school district? Let's take a look. California's public education system consists of 3 levels: state, county, and local. Regulations, funding, and fundamental policy are established at the state level, while the day-to-day education of students is the responsibility of individual school districts at the local level. County offices of education, or COEs, represent another level, providing an important support system for school districts in their counties and serving as a liaison with the state. While COEs do not directly oversee or govern individual school districts, they do provide valuable support and services that are essential to local school district operations. For example, each of California's 58 county offices of education share a common function to ensure school districts in their counties are fiscally accountable and solvent. They also approve school district local control accountability plans, or LCAPs, provide professional development opportunities, and assist districts with academic performance initiatives. Most COEs also directly serve their county's most vulnerable student populations, including students who have been expelled from their home district, students who are incarcerated or are on probation, homeless and foster youth, students with severe special needs, and early learners through a network of state-funded preschools. A multitude of additional supports are offered by many county offices, some of which include hosting student events and competitions, student enrichment, residential outdoor education programs, and much more. Each County Office of Education is overseen by a county superintendent of schools. In all but 5 counties, the superintendent is a publicly elected official who runs the COE. Each county also has an elected county board of education, whose responsibilities include approving charter schools and hearing inter-district transfer and expulsion appeals. The county board also approves the COE budget and local control accountability plan, but has no authority over individual school districts. For parents and students, your local school district is the most relevant agency for policies and decisions impacting your child's education. A school district's governance team is composed of the school district administration and a locally elected board of trustees. Local school boards have broad power to approve and create budgets, hire district superintendents, develop and select curricula aligned with the state's standards, and set district-level policies, including those related to facilities as well as health and safety. In California, our system is designed to have the decisions that most affect your child be made at the local level, where you can have your voice heard.
Hey, thank you. We really like this video because it's just a really nice, succinct reminder of roles and responsibilities and what county offices do. And so now on to Beverly.
Just quickly, I would like to go over the challenges that we have in our roles as county boards of education and working with the county superintendent of schools, because we do have very different responsibilities, and especially we have very different responsibilities than those of a district board or superintendent. The relationship between the County Board of Education and the County Superintendent of Schools is very complex and controversial. And I think it's very, very important that a board president understands this. And it's complex because it's been established by more than 120 years of piecemeal legislation and controversial because of the conflicts that arise from overlapping powers and responsibilities. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there as a reminder that we always need to keep that in mind. Juliana?
You're on mute, Juliana.
Great. Thank you. Sorry. I will be putting myself on mute. I have a new puppy and she is trying to learn her manners. And so if you hear a little yelping in the background, you'll know that I'm going to mute very quickly. ACCBE believes in order to jointly lead each county office of education successfully, both county boards and county superintendents should pursue the concept of shared governance, characterized by shared authority, accountability, and responsibility, and to the extent possible, an aligned vision. Only through a collaborative and shared governance process can both entities govern together effectively and seamlessly for the benefit of the students and families in their county. We could take this, take out county board and put in county board president, because that's exactly what the county board president has to do, has to collaborate and work with the superintendent. The board president takes an active role in making this happen by working with the county superintendent, because we have to remember what our ultimate goal is. And the ultimate goal is student success. How do we get there? Through collaboration. And one thing to remember, I think this is really important to remember, is there will always be challenges. It's sometimes you're going to be going along, things are going really well, agenda setting's going well, meetings are going well, and then something comes up and there's going to be these challenges. So that's one thing to really remember, that there will be challenges. Next slide, please. Along with this idea of shared governances, how many people are on your governance team? Can just anybody shout out some numbers of how many people are on your particular governance team?
5.
6.
Anybody
7.
else?
7.
7. 7? Okay, so I want you to know that your governance team is composed of the county board and the superintendent. You can't do governance separately. You're a team together working for what? I'm going to be like saying this over and over and over. You are going to be collaborating because you want to ensure student success. So you're sharing authority, accountability. Your accountability is to your students, your community, your voters. Your responsibility to the students in the community. Aligned vision. How do you get to an aligned vision? Well, hopefully you're having workshops, you're having retreats, and in those workshops and retreats, hopefully it is the board and the superintendent that you all are there together. One thing to remember is laws can be contradictory. And then throw in attorney general opinions. So sometimes it's really not clear who has the authority to do what. But by working together and collaborating and talking it out, many times these nuances can be worked out to the benefit of students. For the majority, county superintendents are elected and the voters will evaluate the superintendent. Voters also evaluate the board in the same way. Neither the board nor the superintendent evaluate each other. And I think that's a really important point to make. And I think it's part of the job of the president to make sure that the board understands that. Because many times board members will ask, well, we really want the superintendent to do this. We not happy about this. We want it to go in this direction. Well, you have to work together, but you don't get to evaluate the superintendent, except in those few counties where the county board actually appoints the superintendent. And I'm going to say it again and again and again. Collaboration equals the ultimate goal, which is student success. Next slide, please. So on my last 2 years at the board, I was board president. We came into a contentious election. Most of the board supported the outgoing superintendent who lost the election and were, to say the least, very antagonistic towards the new superintendent. I had to take a really good, long, hard look at what was most important and what I was going to do as board president. And hands down, what was it for? The students. I was able to build a relationship with the incoming superintendent because of this list of items here. The incoming superintendent and I met, and we agreed on these 7 principles. We would have trust. We would trust that each of us would do the right thing for the right reasons. We would treat each other with respect, courtesy, and kindness, give each other a little grace in getting to know each other. There would be open communication. If I needed to get a hold of him, he would listen. If he needed to get a hold of me, I would listen. So we had our confidence in our relationship to move forward. We were honest with each other and we were transparent. If there was an issue, we didn't hide. We were very open. And we didn't always agree, and you don't always have to agree, but you should respect each other's decisions and opinions. And I think one of the most important parts in this list, one of the very most important, is there were no surprises and no gotchas. We didn't come into a meeting with each other or with other people or at a board meeting trying to get the upper hand on one another. And that's a no surprise and no gotchas. I think that's one of the most important thing. And because we really worked at this relationship when we met regularly, our relationship carried over to board meetings and other board relationships with the superintendent. So we were able to, because of our relationship was strong, he was able to mend relationships with the rest of the board. So next slide, please. And it all comes down to what? Our ultimate goal: collaboration for student success. And I think that if you keep that in mind of what you're doing, you can get past a lot of the issues that can come between a superintendent and a board president. Okay, Beverly.
Hey. Now we're going to get into talking about just exactly what the key roles as a president are. And you're going to be surprised. There are a lot. So remember that it's your responsibility to run the meeting. So the first thing is being prepared and doing the board meeting homework. And that is reviewing the agenda, reviewing all of the information that might be asked or needed for the different items on the agenda, and making sure that all of the county office people have their information ready if the board has questions. And then you're setting the direction based on the board's values, purpose, and goals as a group. So it's important that you really understand what your board's values are, what your purpose is, and what goals does the group want to accomplish. You also need to be effective in knowing and practicing processes, policies, and structures, and facilitating the test of the trustees knowing the board's processes, policies, and structures as well. And this is where you really do need, in my opinion, to have policies in how your board meetings are going to be run, how the board is going to address each other, how you want to structure your meetings, what kind of facilitating is going to take place that's going to involve the rest of the trustees. Do you have a process in how you ask questions, or do you just blurt it out no matter who else is talking? These are really important things, and it's really the president's responsibility to make sure that they're running a well-run and polite and respectful meeting. Creating a board team and a positive governance environment, and Juliana has really talked a lot about that. It's absolutely key. If you don't have a positive governance environment, you're sunk. It's not going to work, and it's going to be a real hard year as president. And ensuring accountability to get results for students and families. And in addition to getting data and asking about impacts of the things you're talking about, this can also include assessing how timely and well county staff implement the different directives that they receive from the county board, programs and strategies, and how responsive your superintendent is. How effective is your board about the communication with the superintendent and how that superintendent carries out the things that the board asks he or she to do, And it's about a mindset of continuous improvement versus people feeling judged. And you really don't want them to feel judged. And being an ambassador for education and advocating for BOE students. You're an ambassador every time you talk about what you do as a county board member. And so you want to make sure that when you're out in your community, you're talking about the County Board of Education, the County Office of Education, the educational issues and trends that you're advocating for locally and at a state level. For our county offices and students' needs, we need to be advocating 24/7. Next, please.
I just wanted to add to that, being an ambassador. I think that people look to county board members as the voice of education in the community, more so than district board members. They look to county board members for answers. So, and as all of you know or have been in that situation, you're in the grocery store, the gym, wherever, and somebody comes up to you and they want you to do something about such and such a person or such and such a school and things. You have to remind them that's not in your purview, but it just goes to show how much the community values and looks to you for guidance.
Okay, thank you, Juliana. The next thing we want to talk about is establishing relationships and communication with the superintendent. You're going to be serving as the primary liaison with the superintendent. And so you really need to make sure that you've got that relationship established. And I really recommend that you try and set up meetings between the board president and even including the vice president or clerk with the superintendent in between meetings, just to make sure that you're all on the same page. Set meeting agendas with the superintendent, not a rubber stamp. And this is something that I think is key, and it can be done either in person with the superintendent or over Zoom. Either way, but it is key that the board president is involved in setting that agenda. And the governance team, we already talked about how many. And one of the things I also wanted to interject in here is that when you're busy running a board, you may have things come up that you do not expect at all. And one of the things that you're going to find as board president is that you're going to have to regulate the input and comments from the community. And at the beginning of our board meetings, we always have an area where people from the community can talk about things that are not on the agenda. And we do have a time limit, which is a policy. And we announce that time limit to everyone. And we also announce that if people have comments that they would like to make about something on the agenda, we will give them time at the beginning or at the end of that agenda item. You can do it either way. Again, we do have a time limit. And I had a board president or a board member call me just recently with an issue that their board was having with someone that would come to their board meetings, every single meeting. And this person was a person that had been on a district board, but was not on the county board. And during the meetings, they would interrupt during the board discussions on different agenda items and say, well, I want to say this and I want to say that. And I have this to say, and this is my opinion. You need to understand this is not a public meeting in the respect that people can just interject into your board discussions. And it was up to the president to say to this person, I'm sorry, but you had an opportunity to speak before the agenda item, or I will give you an opportunity to speak after, but it's inappropriate for you to be interrupting our discussions. But her board president did not do that. And this has gone on meeting after meeting after meeting. So remember, you have the authority to say this is not appropriate, and we'll address it at the end of our agenda item. So also, a legal representative for the board is really highly recommended. And they can act as a spokesperson for the board. Usually, you will have one that may be provided by the county itself, or you may have your own private legal representation. But it's important that you have one so that you can ask questions about legalities of different things that came up. And also, it's good to have them there when you're having interdistrict transfers and expulsion hearings as well. And then on this slide, last but not least, know the Brown Act. And that is very, very important. And it's something that we've given an excellent training on the Brown Act, and you can look it up and see what we had to say. It is so important. I see that Hugo has his hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add one thing. I don't know if it's like a standard practice, but I think it works really well for us. But when I set the agenda with our superintendent, my vice president, Beverly, is there. So we do that in collaboration, and that's just always helpful to have someone else there.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much, Hugo. Can I have the next slide, please? Governance. We want to establish and reinforce culture and norms and know your board policies. I know that this is probably not your favorite bedtime reading, but as board president, it's really, really important that you review those policies. You don't have to know them by heart, but even if you know you have a policy on a certain subject, even that is important. But you need to remember you're in charge. So it's important that you know these things. Board protocol and operations. And I think this is key. At our board meetings, we're a little on the formal side. We always have been. I've been on our board for 36 years, and it's been exactly the same all 36 years. And it's not something that I would want to change. We're very polite. We raise our hand. The president addresses the person. The person asks the question, and then the president either refers it to somebody else or answers the question. But it's a very polite and definite process so that people aren't interrupting and disrupting the meeting. Also, it's important, at least we feel, and this is something that ACCB can help you out with, is set the board calendar. And this is something that not only the president should participate with the superintendent in, but also the rest of the board members as well. And this is a great tool so that you and your board members know what's coming up, what to expect, and what to ask for. So a board calendar is very important. And then public comment, and I already addressed, but I will just say one more thing. Remember, it's your responsibility to keep order during the board meeting. And that's not always easy.
And Beverly, could I say something too, along
Sure.
with that, is to remember that this is your meeting held in public. This is not the public's meeting. This is the board, you're doing the board's business in a public setting.
And that's always good to remember. And disruptions and interruptions, we've really talked about that, but I do want to say one more thing. There are times when there may be a very, very controversial item on your agenda where you're going to have maybe 50, 60, maybe even 100 people come to a board meeting. And you need to be prepared for that. It isn't something that you just want to say, oh, well, it'll be okay. It may not be. So if you know that you have a controversial item on your agenda, work with your superintendent and other members of your county office to make sure that you have a very definite process in place before the meeting. We just went through a charter school presentation where we did not approve the charter school. It was addressed to us. And we had 2 very, very large meetings with lots of very unhappy people. But Hugo, our board president, had worked diligently with our county office and had a very definite process in place. And even though we had close to 100 people at our board meeting, it went really very smoothly. And we had a process for seating them. We had a process for them addressing the board. We had time limits. Everything also was posted so that people knew. Are there any questions on that?
I think one thing that we were going to talk about was to have a visible timer.
That's right. It really is helpful if you have a visible timer. And what we did during this time is we had the time posted on our movie screens so that you could see as the time counted down. So as the speakers were speaking, they knew whether they had 20 seconds, 10 seconds, or 5 seconds. And then it was the board president's responsibility to say, I'm sorry, but your time is up. And you have to be consistent. Even if they're in the middle of saying something, you can let them finish a sentence, but don't let them start the next one. And sometimes it has to be a sign. If you can't project it onto a screen, someone can be holding up a sign that'll say 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then time's up. And that's another way that you can do that. And then we also talked about advocacy. Can I have the next slide? This is one of my favorite topics of discussion, and that is the trustee handbook. And this is absolutely key to have. And we have it posted on our website. You can go in and read it on the website, and you can print it out. I have one right here, and then I have another one that I printed out right here. And I keep one or the other with me at every board meeting. And in the trustee handbook, you're going to find tons of information that will help you not only as a board president, but as a board member. And reminders. And if you're not sure how something is supposed to go, you have your roles and responsibilities, the difference on what county board members do, what county superintendents do. You have a whole section on working together. There is a section on topics in law and governance, which include court and community schools, what you're responsible for there. Remember, you are the board for your court and community schools. You are the district board for your court and community schools. It talks about inter-district transfers. It talks about expulsion hearings. It talks about charter school hearings. So this is a valuable resource for all of you. And I would highly recommend that you go back to your board and say, does everyone have a copy of this? Because I think it'll help you. And especially those of you that will be getting new board members. You really are going to need to use this. Next slide, please. Do we have any questions? Debbie, do we have questions in the chat?
Just to clarify, are these questions on what you've said or just questions people generally have about being board president?
All of the above.
Okay, just to clarify. Thanks.
Will this presentation be available at all, having been recorded at all, to be able to listen to again or share among board members?
Yes, it has been recorded, and it will be available on our website.
Thank you.
I see
And
Sarah's,
everyone who registered. Go ahead, Sarah.
I see Sarah's hand up.
I had a quick question on one bullet point you had, where it said set the meeting agendas with the superintendent and then not a rubber stamp. It hasn't happened. I was board president before, but what happens if you want something in and the superintendent disagrees? I mean, is that what you mean by rubber stamp?
Well, I mean two things by rubber stamp. One of the things I mean is there are boards where the board president or any member of the board has absolutely nothing to do with the agenda setting. The superintendent sets it however they want it, and that's the way it is. But it should be a partnership. And if you have something that you want on your board agenda and the superintendent disagrees, that's a time when you're going to have to negotiate. And we had that happen actually more than one time on our board when I was president. And I hate to say this, but I finally had to threaten calling a special meeting about that particular topic, which, by the way, you can do. If you have something and the board feels very strongly about it and you can't get it on the agenda, you can call a special meeting. And there are very strict guidelines, but you can do that. Marcy?
And I was going to add on to Sarah's question, Sarah, and that's part of that relationship building and those 7 principles. I'm not so naive because I've had superintendents who gave the agenda to the board president the Thursday afternoon before it was going to come out on Friday morning. And so there was no way to have any input into the agenda. So having those meetings prior or when you first become board president, before you have to set that agenda, and maybe getting some of those expectations out in the open of transparency and what you expect can help. But once again, you may have to go something more towards what Beverly said about calling special meetings or whatever, because it has to be a collaboration. And I think it's something that you can also talk about with evidence from the handbook about how it has to be a collaborative process. And if it really isn't, maybe some of that can be addressed in a retreat or a workshop. Marcy?
Yeah, thank you. I am board president this year. I have been in the past, and we're going to have our first retreat that's not specific to like transfer appeals or, very specific roles and responsibilities of the board. We're going to be looking at purpose and goals. And I'm just, because we have, as a board, as long as I've been on, we've never had that conversation about the board's priorities and purpose and goals. And I just love to hear your thoughts and or others on the call as to how frequently do you do that? Do you do that every single year with the new board president? Or is this something that you do, periodically? We have kind of gone along with the mission and vision of the superintendent. We don't have our own separate mission and vision. I'd like to hear a little bit about those topics.
I can say for Tuolumne County, we have usually in July, because it's pretty slow in July, we usually have our board retreat every year. And we look over our mission and vision, we look over our goals and priorities, but always with the superintendent there, so we're all working as a governance team.
So are you redefining those missions and goals?
Well, you
or
look
are
at
you
it,
just kind of looking at them?
I think that you would look at them and you would say, oh, look, do we need to redefine? Do we need to go into more detail? Did we achieve this goal? And then that's something, of course, to celebrate. And do we need to set some more goals or priorities? So I think you have to look at the whole picture of that, is to look at it, but also not just look at it, but what are we going to do with this?
We have both Dave and Bina with their hand up. Dave?
I think, let me say that people often will look to our county office and what we've done. But I want to start with the fact that we've done it over a dozen years. So we at this point do have a shared mission statement, and the superintendent has specific activities that goals that they've set, and so do we, and they intermesh. But it started for us at least with the idea that we first needed to get our own act together. We actually hadn't been doing evaluations, and then we built some of that, and then in conjunction with the superintendent, and then that was a process of building trust. And from the evaluation, we started setting our goals, and then the conversation said, how can we continue to work together? So, Marcy, we do meet at least once a year in a setting that you would call a retreat or something. We also try at least every half a year to review our progress on our goals. So hopefully that helps you.
Thank you.
Bina?
Yeah, mine's a little like that, Marcy. A few years ago, we decided we needed to update our vision and mission and our very large organizational goals. So the board did that. The superintendent was there, but it was really mostly the board talking. And then we do, as a practice, our board every year meets with our superintendent. Now it's happening during our retreat where we look at annual goals. We talk about what our goals are. The superintendent gives us feedback about what he thinks realistic. And then our staff actually create work plans around those goals. But our goals are things like literacy is a goal, or mental health in school. So they're like pretty big, hefty goals that are generally multi-year. And we have been able to kind of add, like we'll have a goal, like we've had mental health for like 5 years, but in a way it's still there, but we're adding new goals on top of it. So it's kind of a balancing act about how many goals you should have. And your superintendent will absolutely tell you, like, my staff cannot do any more work. Yeah.
And I want to say it can be lofty goals like that, but it can also be very concrete goals. Like maybe you don't have a board calendar. So maybe your goal is this year to implement a board calendar. I mean, so it can be very lofty goals, but it can also be very concrete goals that help govern the board. It could be something like, we are going to, at every meeting, spend 10 minutes going over the board's policies so that everybody knows what the board is supposed to be doing. So there's different ways to do it and different things. And some years it could be very specific, and some years it could be a little bit more general and lofty.
Jen?
Julianne, I just want to say that I like the fact that you have governance goals. We haven't really done that. Our goals have been more like, student outcomes, programmatic goals. So thank you for bringing that up.
Jana.
Thank you very much for your leadership and bringing us together. I really appreciate it. I've been serving on the board for 28 years, and this is my second year being president. And I think that we have a very good board. But lately there has been one board member who has decided to publicly do personal assassination of other board members. And I just was wondering, we spoke with that person about it's more appropriate if you have an issue to talk with them outside of the board meeting to get whatever clarification that you need, because they were throwing out accusations of things that weren't true at all, and it's been quite difficult. So I currently am working to have a meeting with them and the superintendent to be able to talk about what actually happened and what alternative leadership would be, because even with students that are on our board as well, we want to model good leadership and how to work through resolutions and things. So, and this has happened, I guess, over just like the last 3 years out of all these years being on the board. The situation of divisiveness has entered into our boardroom as a complete surprise to me. And so I was just wondering if there was any particular advice from anybody or wise wisdom from the leadership team here on handling this situation.
Well, you're doing exactly the right thing. We have had that on our board as well. And we actually started out with the board president speaking to the person. And then the board president spoke to the other person. And then we had a meeting between the two because it doesn't do any good if you're talking to one and you're talking to another, but they need to talk to each other. And the best way to resolve the issue is to do it away from the public setting and in a meeting together. And you can have your superintendent there if that's appropriate, or anyone else that you think might make it better. But to me, what you're doing is really what you need to do. And you need to address it. The other thing you can do is actually gavel the person down and say, hey, this is not appropriate right now. We will take this up later.
Because even as a board retreat is a public meeting, and so therefore it goes public too. And I know that there was some shock among other board members at the bullying nature of what was happening and things. And again, the superintendent is the secretary. And so the president really, truly needs to be the one to bring in the backbone, the reining it in, and the call for kindness and civility. And yeah, I do appreciate your thought and gaveling it and clarifying. But it's that delicate balance about not wanting to make a public display of this need to resolve. And so our democracy is different styles of leadership, and that's what I had shared. So I wrote her back right away and just said, I'm so glad that we're able to express the different styles of leadership, and this would be a more appropriate way to deal with it. And so I've asked actually 7 times for a meeting that she has declined. And so now I'm going to ask the superintendent to ask for her to have a meeting as well. I'm surprised at this level of difficulty in discourse.
It's really difficult, I know, to deal with. I've dealt with it, and it's hard.
It is hard. Sometimes it's just hard being president. It really is. I have to agree with Beverly that if this is happening in a meeting like that, you just gavel it down and you say that we will take this up at a different time.
Okay.
And it's hard to do. It's so hard to do. But I think that it shows resolve and it shows who's in control of the meeting.
Yes. Thank you.
If I could
Dave?
add, yeah, if I could add, I think I heard you talk about engaging with your superintendent. The superintendent also has the interest of the county and can often be a powerful ally into making sure that these things get resolved and aren't in the public eye. They also could help you if it gets to this point where you might need some legal support about how best to deal with that. I think those are all offline conversations that are important, and it just reflects one of the most difficult jobs of the president, which is to manage this piece. So
Maybe it's
good that you're doing it.
Maybe it's a psychological mentoring more than a legal mentoring.
I think it has both. I think but it's also important for, in a very worst case scenario, there are steps that a board can take to deal with this, and it's the very last thing you ever want to do because it's very public and it can cause relationships to be at a point where they cannot be repaired. But you should be aware of what those are, and that's where your superintendent should be your colleague in having those conversations and hopefully finding an indirect way to help the person you're trying to basically to accept the norms of the way the board works in a manner that is as respectful and appropriate as possible.
And for people to verify the facts of whatever it is that they're stating before just spewing out allegations and things. So I think that's incredibly important for people as leadership to encourage everybody to do.
Yes. Yes. Jessica?
Hi. Like I have more of a situation, or I've witnessed situations where it's a personality conflict between a board member and the board president. And I'm curious if you guys have had those situations and how you've handled them, because it's hard because the board president may be thinking of oneself and not the governance part of being the board president, where it's not necessarily on that the board member, the regular trustee is being disruptive, but maybe saying a differing opinion that upsets. I'm just curious on that.
I think because I've had that situation. Sometimes meeting off-site and having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and having a frank conversation can do wonders for that, away from the office, away from the other board members, and see if you can find some common ground.
Yeah.
That has personally worked for me. Otherwise, it may be that you have to ask your superintendent. Maybe a meeting between the three of you might work.
Yeah. I'm not actually, I'm
Yeah,
the
I
person
mean,
witnessing it, but yeah,
right.
no, I get it.
Something like that could work also.
I think that may work better in a situation where you have a superintendent who is not, we are a appointed superintendent area, and it makes it a little more fragile as to how far the superintendent will go because he has 7 bosses. Anyway, it's interesting. Thank you.
Sarah.
President. I'm president for the second time. And I'm the best way to involve in governance. I spent the last year never participating in any governance with my that it happened, but I president the second half of the year in agenda setting, and I thought that was good. But I'm wondering, the rest of you do you have any recommendations? My current
Sarah, you're really cutting in and out. We can't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry.
I was to ask the role of the president to include her or not, how much that you heard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we didn't hear much.
How about if I turn the videos better? Yes?
Yes,
No?
that's better.
Okay. I was asking about the best way to include my vice president now that I'm president. And I spent the last year being vice president, wasn't included in any kind of governance meeting ever. But when I was president before, I did include my vice president for the second half of the year in our agenda setting meetings. So I just wondered if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Well, I can answer that one because I'm vice president and Hugo is president, and I am included in all of the meetings that he's included in. So it's like a team. And it's a great team and a great way to do it, because on occasions when he can't be there, then I represent the board and we're on the same page. So I think it's really important for that VP to be part of the team. And they may not be physically running the meeting, but they should know what's going to happen and what isn't going to happen and be part of it. And it's also great training for when they step into the position.
Yeah, great.
Are there any other questions?
We had one in the chat. This was from Rachel Williams. She was asking if we could talk a little bit about board self-evaluation and goal setting and a president's role in that.
Oh, that's really a great question.
And very important, and the board president has a huge role in promoting board self-evaluations and setting time aside for goals in a retreat.
And the self-evaluation, I will confess that until this year, my board had never done a self-evaluation, ever. But because of things that I had heard through other training on ACCBE and from other board members throughout the state, and our president had heard, we and he mostly, it was his forthcoming goal was to have a retreat, number one, And number two, for the board to do a self-evaluation. We've done our self-evaluation, and we've had 2 retreats, and we're on our 3rd one. I believe it's January 30th. And so the board president can initiate it, flat out initiate it, and initiate having a retreat to do these things.
We've done board evaluations for years, board evaluations where we evaluate ourselves, plus we evaluate how we think we're doing as a board. And it's very instructive of seeing, oh, maybe we need to do a little bit more on communication with the public, or do we all know what our duties are for interdistrict transfers? So I'm a great believer, and I think they're very, very important, and that the board president sets the tone, a positive culture for self-evaluation, and goal setting.
Well, I will say, I hope it's okay, but Debbie Moss has been facilitating, and Dave Patterson, our retreats, and they have not been easy retreats. And I think the one coming up is going to probably be even more difficult than the other 2, because we have issues on our board. But the self-evaluation was really key in bringing out issues that exist that need to be addressed if we're going to be successful, and if we're going to make sure that we make our students successful. So I really do want to give a lot of credit to Debbie and Dave. Bina?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One is I really liked your comment about the board president needs to take initiative, because the board president can set the tone for the meeting. They can make sure there are retreats. They can make sure, if this is important to the president, they can make sure that there is a self-evaluation. They can make sure that, so I think they have latitude. So I just appreciate you reminding us that the board president can take initiative. And then my second is a curiosity. And this gets to how people treat each other. I have found that having what I call group agreements, where usually our board has created these, but it's something that I have always done when I facilitate meetings. And it's really like, how does this group want to treat each other? Like, what are the norms by which we want to live? Like, one of our norms is that we'll check for understanding when someone says something, because we had a board member that never felt heard. And that finally came out in one of our discussions about our agreements. And so we made an agreement that, we will listen and check for understanding, so that this particular board member, basically it's paraphrasing what they said. So we try to paraphrase people so they understand that, yeah, you were heard and this is what we heard. That's just one of our agreements. So I'm just curious if anyone has those and if they find them helpful in terms of trying to create more cohesive relationships.
Well, that's what we're working on. And we do have them now. We had them before. But we called them board protocol rather than the working relationships. But we had board members that were completely ignoring board protocol. So we've done a deeper dive. I guess maybe that is a good way to put it. Dave?
Well, the point I would want to make is that we've had it, and we've had for a long period of time a very stable board. But as soon as a single member changed, we figured out that, and over time, we have a majority of our board members are new versus what we've had before. And every time we had a board member change, it changed the dynamics of the board, and we needed to go back and do that work again. because and it changed the way we looked at each other and how we did it in a way. But most important, it reestablished the conversation of trust and expectations for each other. So it is something you need to revisit. Even if you think you're an old stable board, I'm suggesting over time it changes, but it clearly changes every time you have a change in a board member or frankly a superintendent or a combination thereof.
I was going to agree with you, David, especially because but you said it at the end, is if there's a new superintendent, that that you have that retreat, you have those workshops so that you're all on the same page, because you have to collaborate together to ensure student success. And so I think that was a really important point.
Are there any other questions?
You know, David, you'd put one here in the chat early on in the conversation about speaking about the board president responsibility to facilitate discussion, but sometimes that role means speaking less or speaking only after other members have spoken. Did you want to address that or elaborate on it?
A little bit. One of the things one has to remember is at the meeting itself, the president's job, one, is frankly to make sure everybody else had an opportunity to talk, that questions get asked that your feeling may not in fact have been brought. You're facilitating everyone's to have a successful conversation with and factually complete and all that. And that means at times you have to be quiet or you have to speak less. And you have to let everything else get on the table and hope others make the points you were going to make. And that's really important, because some people think being the board president means I get to run things. Well, I would suggest a servant leadership approach is more appropriate. No, my job is to make sure everybody else gets their needs met. So I'll put that on the table as something I found very powerful.
I want to put something else on the table that I cannot believe I left out. And that is, I also highly recommend a script. And I went through a long time as president without a script. And then all of a sudden, the superintendent decided that it would be a good idea if the board president had a script. And that was one of the best ideas ever. Because as a board president, if you have a script, not only does it keep you on track, it helps you keep the rest of the board on track. And it really helps be able to very, very clearly and succinctly facilitate your meeting. So I really do, if you don't have one, if you don't use one, I highly recommend you do. And I have to tell you, it's interesting because when I was president, I had my script. And my vice president came in, and the first thing she said is, I'm not using a script. And I said, oh, you know what? I think maybe you should. It's very helpful. No, I'm not. Well, her first two meetings were a mess. And the third one, she went to a script. And what it does is it goes right down the agenda. It tells you how to open the meeting. It tells you, talks about how you have participation as far as people speaking on the different items. It talks about translation available. And then it just goes right down your agenda, and it gives you who's presenting, what they're presenting, and whether you have to take action or not take action. It gives you the verbiage for calling for a motion and a second and calling for a vote. It's all right there. So I like it. Bina, I see that your superintendent provides a script, and Hugo. Our script is done by our board assistant, but she does a great job. And we always have it ahead of time so that if we have any questions on how to pronounce a name or what something's about, we can ask. So I do recommend it if you don't have one. Are there any other questions? Next slide, please. You guys have been wonderful. I really appreciate all these questions. Juliana, I think this one's you, isn't it? Or is this one Debbie?
Oops. Hold on. There we go. So, Julie, unless you want to take this, I can. So, ACCBE, we offer a couple of opportunities for mentoring for board members and county trustees. And you can request these at info@accbe.org. One of them is one-on-one mentoring by a seasoned trustee. We can, based on what your need is or a challenge you're trying to work through, we can match you up with another trustee who can guide you with that. Also the opportunity just to talk once or twice a month if you're working through an issue. So kind of think of something like tonight where we've been able to share examples and best practices and challenges, something that can be one-on-one and tailored to specifically something you might be working through. You can see some of the topics here, whether it's around agendas, scripts have been very popular tonight. You know, maybe it's specific to LCAPs. Even our student board rep networking group at their last meeting, they had a session on LCAPs. So can specialize to what is an area of interest for you. And then also we have opportunities for group coaching. And so this kind of an extension of the Q&A we had from our session, but what burning questions or concerns about being president or the role of the county, county boards do you have, or are there other hot issues that haven't come up yet that you'd like to share with the group, and or if you'd like some offline assistance, we can work on getting you matched up with someone who can mentor you with that.
And if you can't think of anything right now, you can also let us know in the link or in the survey of any burning issues that you may have or questions.
Michael?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I kind of struggle with is the relationship with the superintendent for community partners. Okay. What is the relationship with the board president or vice president and the superintendent to form those community partnerships, whether it's with the county for mental health, whether it's with the probation department for court schools or whatever? What is the role of the president in establishing those?
Well, one of the ways, and this is something that I don't think we talked much about, and one of the roles of a president is to appoint committees. And on our board, a lot of those committees also participate with the districts in the different areas where the committee is active. And we ask for feedback. We have a whole list of committees. I think we have 12 committees on our board. Of course, there's 3 people on each committee. And some of those committees are designed to interact with the board, and then the superintendent participates as well as needed. We're at a disadvantage right now because our superintendent is ill and hasn't been in the county office for almost a year. So we're a little different. But the standing committees, and Dave just reminded us, they are under the Brown Act. But we go out, for instance, our advocacy committee will go out and meet with district people. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. Dave, do you want to say anything more about that?
Well, in our case, one of the roles that we have in our bylaws for our board president, as you were saying, is in fact to be the point person in collaboration with the superintendent on any public statements or anything. So she or he always is the first one to be out there with the superintendent, for example, at a public event or making a part of a presentation. We also have a backup plan if that person's not available and do that. But we do have a structure that says, okay, we just don't, and not everybody in the board can just speak on behalf of the board. We do have a structure to make sure that there's a clarity there. A board member can always speak on their own behalf. We also make that clear. But we also have discussed that that's really important if you're going to do that. And at times we do, that it's very clear in your statement that you're speaking as an individual and not on behalf of the board. So that balancing act is always there, and we do pay attention to it. It's important.
And Michael, I would also say that part of that relationship building with the superintendent and the board president is being able to rely on one another. I know that when I was board president, oftentimes my superintendent would ask me to go to a meeting with him. If it has something to do with the county, or he or she were doing something special because we had that close relationship and can count on one another, it's not really backup, but you're there as an equal partner, as a member of the board, coming with the superintendent to meet with mental health or meet with probation or with the board of supervisors or with the Rotary Club or whatever it is, because really, once again, the board is the face of public education in the county. And it's really important that the board is involved and shows up along with the superintendent to these community meetings.
Does that help,
Thank
Michael?
you. Yeah, we do things a little different up here, but no, it does, because I think it's real important for the board president, for all the board members, to be involved in community partnerships. And so we do a lot of those things. For instance, even when I wasn't, I'm the vice president now of it, but if we were dealing with the tribes, I would always go because I represent the Native American tribes on their tribal lands. And so I would go with the superintendent, even though I was not the president, or the vice president, because that's who I represented. But I think what you said is absolutely true, but I think it's something that I don't find our board president doing as much of community partnerships because we have a lot of them. So the superintendent does ask other board members. Mm-hmm. Or it's just a little different in Del Norte, because when we go to do community partnerships, we don't only do it as a county, we also do it with a unified school district. So we have an interaction between both ways. Thank you.
And I think that's something you brought up, a very important point, is to involve your board. Is what are the strengths? Because I would be with you if I weren't board president or VP or clerk, because I also have tribal. It's in my district or my trustee area. And so it would help as board president if you knew your board's strengths. Maybe there's somebody who has medical background. Well, maybe you want them to be more to going towards that hospital community service type organization. So I think it's good to know what your board's strengths are also. That was great.
Well, it's 8:31, so I think it's time to wrap up. Debbie, do we have one more slide here?
Yeah, just a couple of things wanted to let folks know. We've got some upcoming events for Building Trustee Excellence Series, which is what tonight's event is. Every month we try to hold one. February 26th, it'll be on advocacy and also helping boards interface with our legislator, and Dr. David Patterson is going to be leading that for us. We're having a session on budgets April 27th, and then governance on meeting facilitation, Robert's Rules of Order. That'll be noon on May 18th. So we tend to flop our training, whether they're in the evening or at noon, depending on when folks have the ability to or flexibility in their schedule to attend. Again, the info@accbe.org email address if you want any follow-up on being mentored. We put the link to the handbook in the chat, but when you get the copy of these slides, which will be posted on our internet, that link will also be live to go to the handbook. So we make that available on our website. So on our close, what is one takeaway from today that you can use to be an effective president? So feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat. And while you're doing that, I have a poll. So we're interested in getting some ideas for you of future topics that you'd like to hear more about. So anybody want to shout out what they're, oh, we've got some folks putting it in the chat. Oh, yes, the collaboration equals student success. That's great, Marcy. Yes. We have our in-person sessions coming up. Flyers on our website. First one's May 20th and 21st in Modesto. All right. And so with that, Bev, Juliana, if you have a closeout, I'm going to leave this survey up for those of you to give us some more ideas on upcoming training. I'll let you send us out.
I just want to thank everyone for attending. It was really exciting to be able to interact with all of you and meet you. So thank you. Thank you for attending our session. We learned a lot too.
Yes, and I loved all the questions. I loved all the advice from seasoned board members and from new board members who have some great advice for some of us who have been around for quite a while. So thank you very much for your very active participation. It makes for a much more exciting and enjoyable session. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you too for leading us through a great training. Good.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Hang out for a minute. Well, good job, you guys. That was great. I thought that